That's yeah. So it's hard to do Ironman match highlights because Chris Benoit has won the most out of anybody.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, how are you going to do highlights?
There's those two Ironman matches where somebody just lost. And then that weird time when Andre the Giant tripped. So, all right, let's go.
All right. Oh, man.
Oh, wait, it's me.
Yeah, it's you.
Yeah. All right. Hey, guess what?
What?
The year is almost over. It is Friday,
Thank God.
December 30th, 2016. And you are listening to On the Heels Wrestling Podcast on this New Year's Eve.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. We're headed into the year of Trump.
Oh, God.
But let's have one last happy moment to reflect upon the good times that has been wrestling in 2016.
Yeah. What is your name?
Oh, yeah, I'm Kyle.
I'm Brittany.
I'm Ray.
We are three wrestling fans who like to conversate and debate and sometimes pontificate and articulate
Oh, shit.
things that
Lay it down
fascinate our strong feelings towards professional wrestling. And we started a podcast where we used to work. Now we do this just for funsies, the true test of wrestling podcast friendship. And but back then, people used to think we were weird.
Yeah, they did. This podcast is all about giving you consistent, bite-sized commentary on the world of professional wrestling, focused primarily on the WWE's ever-expanding fucking lineup, though we'll occasionally touch on the local indie scene. Right here in Seattle,
Oh,
Washington.
man. Nice.
Every week, we'll either recap WWE's weekly shows, network specials, pay-per-views, or we'll hold a roundtable discussion on a particular topic. And this week, for our last podcast of the year, we will be reviewing all of the crazy shit that has happened in wrestling this year, and then ranking our most memorable moments along the way. And here's where you find out what we put on the list.
Oh, shit.
So the way I just, before we even go into it, the way I structured this was each of us picked our top 10.
Ray gave us a spreadsheet and said, please put numbers here because he doesn't work in an office all day.
No, that's not me. But the reason I did that is one, we each have a lot of different opinions about what was so amazing, and it would take hours for us to go through every single one on each of our lists.
Yeah.
But I also wanted...
Well, yeah, that's like I was joking before. I thought most of the debate centered on how we even made the list, how things even got on the list before we even voted.
Yeah,
Like,
'cause,
the voting was
so,
more or less
like,
consistent,
Ray
right?
gave me a list with like 12 things on it. I'm like, fucking shit, Ray. And I
Yeah.
added like 3. We gave it to Kyle. He added like 10 more. We
Yes.
had to re-vote 5 times on
But
those
to
fucking
look
things.
on the things, though, like, because generally, like, Brittany and I are pretty eye to eye, and Ray's a little bit askew with that,
I'm the
right?
outlier, yeah.
So, like, even in the rankings,
Which,
like,
if you listen to this podcast, you know by now.
we'll get to the rankings, but like, it's funny, like, because like sometimes you can get hung up on wording or classification or whatever, right? So like, I feel like we voted pretty much the same, you and I, in terms of the spirit of like what we thought was the best.
Yes.
But like for different individual items.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So let's get to it. We're gonna do the honorable mentions part first.
Nope.
Or no, we're not.
No, we're going to do that second, so that if we run out of
Oh
time...
man, but that's where the fighting gets to. All right, that makes sense though. All right,
yeah,
cool.
we'll save the fighting for the end.
But then if we don't do it, because we cut it, then people know that there was fighting that they
All
did.
right,
was
basically, the
fighting.
way that end part will go is more or less the person who like voted for that. If it's just one, we'll talk about why and whatever.
Yeah.
We'll
Right.
just bitch about it.
So, all right, yeah, 10 down to 1. I feel like I should take this one because I voted at like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
shit, really?
So, all right. So for me, like one of the top 10 moments of wrestling for this year, ranked really high, was our local scene 3-2-1 battle coming into its own.
Yeah.
It got way better. And why I bring this up, and I've mentioned in other podcasts, is with a lot of WWE shows and way less with NXT and almost never with 3-2-1, like you have to worry about how much you like the show or not. Like, and that's why with 3-2-1 I felt like I was always entertained. And I could just show up, contextless, have a great time, and like it. Whereas with WWE, like, is especially like it's gotten busy towards the end of the year here. About to have a kid, so like I don't watch as much of the wrestling. It's harder to get back into it except for the A++ matches. Like, I have no problem, like, I mean, you guys heard me, I was losing my damn mind talking about Sasha Charlotte a couple episodes ago. I could still fucking talk about those all day.
Yeah.
But some of the other matches, it's like,
Yeah.
Whereas I go to a 3-2-1 show, and like, they've actually been rotating in guests and stuff, and like, some people skip shows, I still get down. I still remember the old angle.
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. That speaks to the strength of them. And that was really awesome to just have that. So, like, I would say to people who don't have stuff like that, check out your indie scene because, like, the love and care they put into sort of Like, they do it for love of the game, like you always say, right?
Right.
The craft they put in, like, was a major thing.
Yeah.
And so...
You could argue that this, like, 3-2-1 battle coming to its own is a statement about indie wrestling in general, just because the way that NXT has grown, that the way that cruiserweights are definitely highlighted now. Like, indie wrestling has a lot more mainstream focus on it than it previously did.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
promotions like 3-2-1 battle that end up making that happen.
Yeah, but there's so many different indies too, right?
Yeah, there are. I mean, even in Seattle, there's Lucha Libre Volcanica, there's Project 42, Defy is going to be starting up soon. Like, there's so much shit.
But they're so character driven. I think a lot of the indies, like, you'll see a thing where, like, people would have left WWE in the past to go to indie because maybe they're better technical wrestlers and they didn't get the storyline they wanted. Whereas, like, 3-2-1 Battle, like, has some really skilled wrestlers, but they're also really good at telling their story and just executing on what they want to do, right?
And I think, look, I mean, I've been to indie shows for a long time, and, like, it's always usually, like you said, character driven or wrestler driven. It's like who's showing up to the show.
Yeah.
Whereas 3-2-1, I'm going to the fucking show.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't know who's going to be on there. Like,
but
I don't even look at the roster ahead of time.
Right.
I just go because I know it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I think 3-2-1 has really found a groove so unique that you have the special guest wrestler that shows up, but they're coming back. Like that really is a testament to
the fact that B-Boy keeps coming back. I think that's the best example, right?
Yeah.
Like, he speaks very, very highly of 3-2-1 Battle.
Right.
And
they're able to toe this line of, like, technical skill and getting people to come back that respect what they do while also being entertaining to others. I mean, your mom still goes.
My mom goes. My mom still tells people she hates wrestling. She started a conversation with some random stranger the last time she was in Las Vegas and mentioned 3-2-1 Battle. She's like, "Oh, you like wrestling?" She goes, "No, I fucking hate it." But, like, that, I think that's the summary I give when people are like, "Oh, do you like wrestling?" And I'm like, "No, but you should go to the show because my mom likes it and she fucking hates wrestling."
Yeah. So, props to those guys. I mean, like, you know...
I think it honestly would have made it higher on the list had not so much shit happened in 2016.
Well, yeah, and we're also pretty WWE-centric, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I felt like it was important to get them on there, and also, like, I feel like I could jump back in at any time, like, you know... We're going to have this kid, right? I could go totally off the radar for a long time. I feel like I could go back to 3-2-1 and just be like, boom, I'm watching wrestling again. Pretty easy. Yeah. It's like WWE, I have to, like, hit you guys up like, hey, what the fuck happened, right?
Yeah.
So
what's going on here? I don't understand.
Yeah.
All right. DIY Revival.
This, for some, thought that it was the match of the year.
Yeah, I've heard that. I mean...
And we talked about this on the last podcast, but the build-up, the storyline... The wrestling, the storyline within the match.
The forks of the storyline, how they came back.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, like, in a broader way, this could just be about the revival, right?
Yeah.
But DIY themselves are also fantastic, and that storyline has been really good. I think you can appreciate, there's so much more moving parts with tag team matches, right?
Yeah.
So many ways where it could fail, that they all executed this so well over so long. It's just, like... super great.
Yeah,
I mean, when we went to that, even back to their American Alpha feud days with Revival, like, we went to that NXT show and we're like, you know, smacking each other at how you're just like, could you believe they did that? Like, how well they're executing these matches, right? It's awesome.
Like, distinctly remember the match with American Alpha and the Revival where the guy crawls underneath the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just little things like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And having those guys help build up other tag teams and get the recognition that they deserve. It's been excellent.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, too, considering, like, if you just, like, at the, like, simplest level, just look at the characters and, like, their outfits and their whole thing. They're just, like,
very
at first glance, they're simple. They're just, like, wearing, like, black briefs. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, just, like, look like 80s wrestler guys, right? Yeah, they are so good at the whole showman aspect and performance. It's super awesome.
Yeah,
and they're also high on my list, so that's also why I'm chipping in on this one.
You actually rated them the highest of the three of us. Ray didn't even fucking vote for them.
No, I got, oh yeah, you're right, I did.
So, let's look at it this way, start the conspiracy theories. My top, like, near top things are, like, near the bottom here, so weirdly, that means you two are in more agreement than me.
Oh, shit!
But, I will say, that's where the semantics of the list comes in, because I feel like in spirit, Brittany and I voted basically the same.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that.
I don't know, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Like, if we don't get to that, I'll, like, make a point to say it. Like,
she's not your best friend anymore.
How dare you? How dare you?
Okay. Hey, all right.
Stop recording.
You want to scoop the box? Fine. Number 8.
The fucking brand split.
So yeah, all right. I hinted at the last episode we'll talk about this, and kind of what I meant is, I'm not entirely sold that it was the best thing, but I do still agree it had to happen.
You didn't even vote for it, Kyle.
That's why. Because of things like, if I am only going to watch so much wrestling, right? Which I already made clear by I'm going to watch some other indie thing. I don't watch all the NXTs, whatever. I kind of want to see the best. And I don't feel so great when I know that I'm missing out on Cena's good work or AJ or Dean Ambrose, who I enjoyed all 3 when they were on Raw, right?
Yep.
I voted for this because I think it was a necessary thing and they actually went through it.
No, I agree.
Yep.
Like I said, I agree. It had to happen, but
it had to happen. But there's been a lot of times in recent years where we say, well, they have to turn Roman heel. And they don't.
Yeah.
But this is something that had to happen, and they actually went through with it. And the way they did it was great. They had Shane McMahon take over one of the brands. They found a way to bring back Daniel Bryan. They've got Mick Foley on TV the whole time. And as much as it sucks, we're a very Raw-centric podcast, right? Because Raw is where we find the most enjoyment out of wrestling. But if Raw starts to falter at all, you bet your ass I'm going to go to SmackDown because I know that there's some excellent talent
But they
there.
also have to be executing to the point where that moment when you go over, when you decide to give them the chance, that they actually deliver too.
Well, right. I know that by watching a couple pay-per-views, sometimes that they can deliver.
Yeah.
The problem with SmackDown right now is I have no idea if that's consistent.
Right.
But I at least have this other option. I think the thing that failed with the brand split is that was right around the time that NXT was hugely popular.
Yeah.
That was also right around the time they started talking about the Cruiserweight division, which is now its own
show.
205 Live.
Yeah.
So it's now there's literally too much wrestling to watch.
Yeah.
So I find myself just watching Raw.
What I would pose to you two is, what do you think they do to keep this sort of interesting going forward? They joke about trades, right?
I think trades is actually what you have to do.
I feel like something there's got to be a thing that
they're
makes
gonna
you
do
think...
another draft. They're gonna do that yearly.
Oh, is that
That's
absolutely said?
That's what they usually do. That's what they did last brand split. So
Okay.
I don't know.
But it hasn't been,
That's been announced,
if
but
that was
assume.
that would be a potentially interesting thing. I feel like trades would be there too.
I think Royal Rumble could really throw a couple wrenches into it.
Usually does.
Whoever ends up winning could choose which brand they want to go against, which could be interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it could be someone on the same brand, it could be someone on a different brand. You have no idea.
Yeah.
I love to see some dynamics like that, or you got to figure a good time for them to change would either be Royal Rumble or Raw after WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think what they did with the brand split was played it extremely safe. They kept a lot of their A+ players on Raw.
Raw is still the premier show.
And SmackDown was their testing ground, which they did.
And we're going to put John Cena and AJ over there because we want it to be good.
Yeah, and I think it's still a good idea. I think they need to mix it up just a bit. But I think overall, it was... kind of like you guys said, I think it was so necessary because if you didn't have the brand split, you didn't have the new era of NXT wrestlers. They would be brought up one at a time, the way the shows are laid out.
So, final mini debate on this topic, so to speak.
Yeah.
Back when we did our draft, episode, we deliberated because we didn't even know what the titles were going to be at the time, right? So we had a lot of debate and speculation,
the titles
right?
were going to go between the brands.
Yeah, we hoped the thing
that was
one thing we talked about is we actually said we thought that the main title would stay main, it would just alternate shows. Obviously, they made the Universal title. We didn't know about that. Do you feel now, after 6 months or so, that the Universal title is above the World title?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah.
If you think of the history of the world title, it's still tied to San Martino and all those guys.
Yeah.
And now this Universal title, which is less than a
tied
year
to
old,
two people.
It's tied to Kevin Owens.
And Finn Balor for one day.
For less than 24 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible.
It is a little weird.
It is weird, but that's what they needed to do because, if it was the other way around...
Oh, yeah, no, it had to be done, and you knew, like Brittany was always quick to point out, Raw is still going to stay number one.
Yeah.
Even if SmackDown gets great, right?
Yeah, it was a smart move.
That business. Speaking of business...
Business, yeah.
Number 7 on our list, Shane McMahon returns and starts jumping off of things.
So...
I was happy this was called out separately.
Yeah.
There are times where, the whole thing with this list for me is, how things were specifically done, right? But this one had to be a separate event because... at the time, we had so many questions about it, right?
Yeah.
So,
especially when we believed the stipulation of the match that he would be one and done if he lost.
So I voted the highest of the three of us on this.
Yeah.
Ray didn't even fucking vote.
Nope.
Kyle did, but I gave it the highest score, and I think part of it was Shane McMahon was completely out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Yes.
he
Nobody
was
saw it
gone.
coming.
He was
just
never supposed to
gone,
come back.
like completely excommunicated, never around for 7 years, and then all of a sudden, like they're doing that. Remember the achievement award or whatever?
Yeah.
Like they were doing this whole thing.
I had no fucking clue.
I had no idea that that's where that storyline was going. And then Shane McMahon shows up, sweating,
Yeah.
and saying like, "Well, I want to be in charge of Raw." I'm like, whoa, shit! And then all of a sudden, he's in a match with the Undertaker.
Not just saying that though, but he was basically like going a squared circle, sorted by like most recently voted up, and saying a lot of the shit that like people were saying.
Yeah.
Right, he was
To
the
Vince.
CM Punk
Yeah, he was the voice of the internet.
of the
Yes.
voiceless.
Yeah.
So part of this too is Shane McMahon came back right around the time that Jericho was back because literally everyone was getting injured.
Yeah.
And like it was widely rumored that Cena was going to face the Undertaker at WrestleMania. So when Cena got hurt and couldn't be at WrestleMania, it was like, well, what's going to happen? Shane McMahon is the way you top that. And this is why I voted for this so high, because it's like Shane McMahon.
5. That's not that high. That's halfway.
It's higher than Ray, who didn't vote for it.
I did
Yes.
not.
Yeah. The problem. All right. So here, all right, we're on the same page, and Ray. No.
Hey, whatever.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But the fact that Shane McMahon comes back, literally, like I'm watching this with Steve, and I look over and I'm like, what's he gonna jump off of?
Yeah.
Like when Shane McMahon was in WWE, I wasn't watching wrestling, but I just know historically he's the guy that jumps off of shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wears his own themed baseball jersey.
He has new
and
shoes
he
every
basically
time.
almost kills
He does a
himself.
little shuffle.
Yes.
Like it's just, I think Shane McMahon came back at the right exact time.
And it got a lot of people who would not have been interested in WrestleMania interested in it. So that was well executed.
I think it was a
Do we
good,
not have a
good
number
thing
6?
for them.
Oh, we
No, number 6,
so
because
cool.
Ray typed it wrong.
All right, new era wrestlers.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Can
so
we
this
bring
is
up the
actually,
votes?
it's tied for number 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't make a typo?
I did not.
Oh, my bad.
It's all good.
Okay.
So we had one tie, even with the revoting. We had
Okay.
one tie. And this is the only thing that I think I voted and no one else did.
Oh, you voted it as your top one.
Yeah.
So that's how it got in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so this
I
is.
question your scoring system, sir.
Oh, no.
No.
What, this is where, like, I keep saying, like, the way the list is constructed, right?
Yeah.
Like, because.
It's Ray's fault.
Yeah, sure. That's the easiest one. No, I mean,
it's
you're not
literally
wrong.
1 equals 10 points,
Yeah.
10 equals 1 point, and
Because
you know,
there's too many things
30 is the
looped in
highest
there.
you can do.
Like, the way I kind of viewed it was, like, when we have individual call-outs of certain things, as you'll see, like, that kind of takes that out of the broader one, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you've removed, like, Kevin Owens and AJ from the new era wrestler batch because they have their own separate things in our list, right?
Yeah. Well-
then the other ones are a little less impactful, right?
Yeah, no. The reason why I called this out specifically was so many wrestlers were brought up right at the same time with
Yeah.
Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
Like when Shane McMahon came, a ton of
And before the brand split.
Right.
Yeah.
When he was just there, like, creating his insurgency.
It was
Right.
basically
Yeah.
them coming in and saying, okay, guys, do over,
Yeah.
and let's just, like, flush it all clean and just start over. Because
Yeah.
we had AJ at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
You had Kevin Owens doing his crazy shit.
I've never seen this much influx of wrestler come in at once.
And succeed.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well,
the other
That
thing, too.
like
Mostly.
literally since like NWO. Like that is the only time I've ever seen this many all at once, and yes, succeed.
I remember being at the Raw after WrestleMania and having Apollo Crews show up.
Yep.
And it being like, holy shit, crazy. And then Enzo and Cass showing up.
Yeah.
And that being like deafening.
Yeah.
Because literally everyone in the room is just like, my name is Enzo Amore. And like now I'm kind of like meh about Enzo and Cass because I see them every week.
Yeah.
But at the time it's like, this is huge, right?
Yeah.
You have all these names that you've been watching them grow in the Performance Center. You've got these big names like AJ and the Club coming in.
Yeah.
Even like Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
As much as like we kind of don't like him in any way at all, like the fact that he gets just kind of like thrown into Andre the Giant Memorial Battle
Wins it.
at WrestleMania, wins it, and then shows up at Raw. It's like, whoa, hold on, how did that happen?
Yeah. And I mean, if you think,
And that they're doing their NXT angles unchanged this time.
yeah.
Yes,
Because
that's
like
the
you
other
would
thing.
always get these weird caveats, like with Neville, like now he's got to wear a dinky cape. What the
Or
fuck?
the what's the tag
Or
team?
Xavier Woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably the best one because he came in basically trying to steal the Funkasaurus gimmick
Yeah.
with the help of R-Truth.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the hell is this?
Yep.
This doesn't, or like, oh man.
Yeah. But
and
if you
the
think,
timing of it all too.
Yeah,
Sorry,
was-
like with the fact that we still kind of didn't believe that they were committed to doing it, and then they kept doing it, which also made it really good, right? Because it was like, oh, they're actually doing it. They're actually doing it, right?
Yeah, and if you think about what was like that, WrestleMania previous year, and the roster it was the previous year, and everything else going on, like other than like Daniel Bryan and New Day and like a few other things, like it was a question of okay, when are they gonna bring up another NXT guy, because they really need to hurry up.
Yeah.
Well, and NXT was blowing up that year too.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too with new era wrestlers is a lot more wrestlers have come in from the indies and they've kept their names.
Yeah.
Like you saw with Kevin Owens and Finn Balor, they were immediately like, yeah, we're gonna monetize the shit out of you. You're gonna change your name.
Yeah.
But then you have people like AJ Styles who come in and he has T-shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yep.
But he gets to keep his name with WWE. Literally everyone in the cruiserweights, TJ Perkins, Rich Swann, Brian Kendrick, like they all got to maintain their personalities, and I think that is a statement on the new era as a whole.
Oh, absolutely.
That WWE is okay with acknowledging that other smaller promotions exist.
Yep.
Yeah, and they've smartly just leaned into, but we're the big time, which is what they should have always done, and they are.
And
right?
it's working.
That's why they can continuously poach from those places. As much as when those guys are there and they can talk shit, they all want to get that contract offer. So code number 5, and this was the one I think I took the biggest weird, being a programmer person, like technicality with wording, is that I think Kevin Owens and Jericho are a great enough moment, but the way it's described is Finn Balor is injured. Kevin Owens show Gift of Jericho.
Well, because the reason why
what you're getting at is that they turned a shitty thing into an awesome thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Which would probably be the way I would say it, right?
Yeah, Finn Balor out. I'm like, I'm not going to vote for that shit.
Yeah, because we were fucking stoked for that storyline.
No.
Right?
I mean,
but they found the way to save it, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get.
I think the savior, the second plan turned out to be better than the original plan.
The what?
The savior of the masses.
But right, it seemed like the backup plan turned out to be better than maybe the original plan ever could have been, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And I think, honestly, that it's going to be better for the main roster in the long term because they've teased Finn Balor now.
Yeah.
Yep.
They've seen him, people who didn't watch
NXT. He was the first Universal Champion.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't take that away.
And now he's got this mystique for whenever he comes back to be immediately injected.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a cool moment. It's just like a weird thing how that turned out.
It sucks, but it works in their favor.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible. But yeah, Kevin Owens and Jericho were the new day of this year.
Yeah.
Where they basically took something that was could have gone in any
second
direction
half of the year,
and then just fucking carried it. Right, for the second half of the year.
Yeah.
Because what was the brand split in July, June?
Yeah,
and that's New Day was starting to lose their steam a little, but not a ton by then. New Day was summer to summer, if I think about it, right?
Yeah. So I mean, Kevin Owens and Jericho kind of teaming up and in hindsight, I should have known that this was going to be as good as it was. Anything you throw at Kevin Owens, he does it amazingly well.
Right.
And everything that Jericho is tasked to do, he does really well. So of course, why would those two not work well together?
Yeah. Even with Jericho, this is
his best work in a while.
You
could have easily thought, oh, is Jericho going to go with this or not? But he all the way did.
And his primary gimmick was a clipboard.
Yeah.
Let's be real. This is one of those silly things with wrestling. I had a coworker today ask me well, why do you watch wrestling? I'm like, well, it's the theater and the performance. He's like, and I mean, I work with nerds. I work at a video game studio. Yeah. And he's like, oh, well, I prefer my wrestling to have more magic and wizardry. I'm like, have you heard of The Undertaker?
Yeah.
Have you heard of his brother Kane, who literally comes to the ring and summons fire?
Yeah.
There's just ridiculous shit happening in wrestling, and that's to the extreme. But then you get something like a clipboard, which gets an arena of thousands of people excited.
There was
a Raw that was dedicated to the clipboard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mitch the Plant.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
When people ask, when I get that question about wrestling kind of stuff, right? It's it is the absurdity of it that is the most entertaining to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But even when you say these crazy characters or whatever, people don't get it because that'll be their weak sauce counter argument, right? It's no, the absurdity is the key. If you can laugh at that kind of stuff and you like the performance, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then you get guys like Owens putting over fucking clipboards.
Yeah, it's funny.
And then Jericho having the ability,
a wrestling resume that says a bullet point, Ken put over a clipboard.
Yeah,
Jericho too. Props to him. At this stage in his career and the successes he's had, he can put the ego aside and be the wingman in this.
Yeah,
right.
You know what's funny though is Jericho's actually the star of this gimmick.
Yes.
But Kevin Owens plays the straight man so well that it works.
Yep.
It was like the last week or so when Kevin Owens is trying to cheer up Jericho. He's like, yeah, give to Jericho. Drink it in, dude.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
But so that's talking about theater of absurd and that kind of stuff. But our moment number 4, just being the CWC, that's where like you gotta really like the wrestling, because that's some wrestling ass wrestling right there.
Yeah.
And that was great. Like that was. I always joke like you can like throw up WWE like shit on the side screen and like kind of do other stuff.
Yeah.
CWC like you had to fucking watch,
and it was
worth
all
watching.
good. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 matches that I was kind of meh about, but the rest of them were all great.
Yeah.
And we still talk about Ciampa and Gargano, like that whole match. And
that's the hardest thing I think to explain. So we talk about explaining to non-wrestling fans why we like wrestling.
This is the exact opposite.
Explaining to non-wrestling fans why you like technical wrestling is the hardest thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because it's like you're appreciating their ability to have a stage fight that doesn't hurt at all and the work involved to do such a thing in a way that is still physically impressive, risky, and crazy.
I would say that there's still a story element to it. It's just very difficult to explain that part of a story element.
Right, well that's what I'm saying. Like it's hard to explain to someone.
Like you have like Ibushi and TJ Perkins and you're telling a story within their battle.
Yeah.
And the fact that Ibushi can't have TJ Perkins submit to one of his finishers.
Yeah.
Like why is that important?
Yeah.
And that's really hard to describe to non-wrestling people, but I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think CWC was a huge moment for WWE because it was basically we have the network. We're confident in the network. We're so confident in the network. We're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge. We're going to create a whole new brand out of it. And all of these guys get to maintain their character. And they can bring in people as much as they want. They don't actually have to commit to anybody. They don't have to tour. They're all at full sale. Like, it's great. And it shows kind of where the product is going. And it's them thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
And I think NXT was the first part of that.
Yeah.
Like, we'll have a development brand.
Yeah.
This is how we get a development brand with talent that's already good.
Yeah.
Ray, would you say it's like the final piece of them like accepting sort of the new age?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it's a lot of it is understanding that there are wrestlers that are just really good fucking wrestlers that may not fit their brand of WWE and that they have to offshoot.
Right. I think this was literally them realizing, wait, NXT is a development brand and we have all of these awesome people. Let's bring NXT back to what it was and let's make something new.
Yeah.
Like instead of trying to shoehorn something in, they did the good business thing and kind of branched out a little bit.
There's like the women's revolution and this was like the small person's revolution.
I think it was just
like
the wrestlers
they can
revolution.
also,
The indie wrestler revolution.
Yeah, but I mean
you can be
the
an
weight
indie
limit.
guy and still be indie, but kind of also on WWE at the same time. Like this is kind of that half step.
Yeah.
Like you're getting the promotion of like live theater and whatnot, but it's like you're on the network.
Yeah.
But the size does still like,
they
have
play
an
a role.
effect. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's wrestling. Like if someone's 210, they're still going to put them on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not if they're 300.
Yeah, I mean John Cena's not going to be on CWC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I will say that I don't think they'll be able to replicate CWC like that tournament ever again.
I am curious to see what they're going to do come this time next year. Like if they're going to do like a Dusty Rhodes tag team tournament style thing.
Yep.
Where all of a sudden it's like, okay, well we have this thing, but now we're going to bring in the trophy because we've had people coming in for a year and now we're going to set up this tournament.
Yeah.
Like who knows what's going to happen,
I
right?
don't know.
But, I mean, 205 Live coming out of the CWC, the whole new brand, Brian Kendrick reemergence.
Yep.
Like, I think that itself was good for not only individual wrestlers, but for WWE as a brand, for wrestling, for indies. It was just good for so much shit.
Yep.
All right.
Number 3.
Number 3.
Totally surprised.
Let me defend why I didn't vote this specific thing. So this Women's Revolution is number 3. Mm-hmm. And when you get to our number 1, you'll see where all this weirdness comes to, or should I just spoil it, whatever. But like to me,
Damn it, Kyle.
the Women's Revolution, like lowercase letters, is like number 1 all across the board. Like the idea of it. The Women's Revolution, capital letters, bullshit of like how it was weirdly shoehorned and like slowly accepted by Stephanie and then weirdly held back at strange times with this transitionary period is why I wasn't like all in, right? Because to me, the Women's Revolution is the 4 horsewomen making it happen. With real ass wrestling, that's really good.
Which was last year.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Women's Revolution, I rated it very high because just kind of the idea of it and whatnot. Like they unveiled a new belt at WrestleMania.
Yep.
and they did away with divas on the grandest stage of them all.
Yep.
They could have done that on the Raw after, but they chose to do it on WrestleMania.
Yep.
And if you remember all of the promotional material, they had Charlotte right fucking center.
Yep.
With Sasha and Becky.
Yep.
So it was a big year, and this is their major promotion where people will, much like the Super Bowl, people who don't watch football watch the Super Bowl. People who don't watch wrestling will watch WrestleMania. And this is their test of, is this going to work? And that's a huge risk. And whether or not it's Sasha or Charlotte or Becky or whoever, this was a big year for, I think, women in the larger space. Like, we already knew women's wrestling was getting big in NXT, but this was the year where it really solidified and said, okay, we're not just going to stick them in a tag team with 3 people. We have Team Bad, Team Bella, and Submission Sorority, whatever the fuck their name turned into. I think that's why I rated this so high.
Right.
Because it was kind of more like the broader idea. Because there's more specific stuff that we'll bring into later.
Right. And so I think that's weird, like, interpretation, because, like, those reasons are why I picked my number 1 to be what it was. And the things you brought up, like Team Sorority or whatever the fuck, is why I didn't rate it as high.
Yeah.
Because I viewed, like, the good parts of the women's revolution are the thing I voted number 1.
Yeah.
Which,
Spoilers. We'll get to
spoilers,
that.
turned out to be number 1. Weird.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. I think the for me the women's revolution the reason why I voted it so high was that I found it more the business decision.
Yeah.
Like,
I think Ray and I are just thinking like business.
Yeah. I mean, like,
I will say
because
the title belt thing, like, I made a mistake there. Like, I kind of, if thinking of it in that regard, I see what you're talking about. Because that is super.
Well, and
super
that
big.
was, I mean, I distinctly remember that because I
And you
had been
were
standing
there.
I had been standing in line at WrestleMania for 3.5 hours at that point, and I saw Lita in the ring and them having, like, you know, the typical, they have the podium, clearly have a belt underneath the thing, and I'm like, shit, something is happening, and I am bolting through fucking Cowboy Stadium so I don't miss this.
Yeah.
So and like, I'm not drunk yet, I'm fully sober.
Yeah.
I remember this clearly.
Yeah.
And to just be sitting down in my chair, like, with a tear coming down my face of, like, I can't believe this is actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, like, the belt, the overall, like, business decisions in terms of booking, like, don't get me wrong, like, the 4 horsewomen have been putting in fucking work this year and last year.
Yep.
And
they will continue into 2017.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they would have been showcased. They could have been not on the Hulu cut and just doing good ass shit.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, is why it was important for me that this was on the list, because even though, yes, I wanted to separate the efforts of other things that happened. I wanted to focus on WWE making the right choices, even though 1 should have happened a long fucking time ago.
Yeah.
And 2, some of the stuff was half-assed.
Yeah.
But even then, like, they course corrected. They got it right.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, most of my, like, you know, and for me, you know, it was like 11 or whatever, like this specific part, but also I had that weird thing where I, like, separated, like, the part where 2 of the women here, don't matter which gender they are the best thing in the company right now.
Yeah.
Versus the rest of the parts, and, like, I lumped in the botching kind of stuff.
Yep.
So number 2, just go. Like, I shouldn't be talking.
When I first got this list from Ray, I immediately looked for Daniel Bryan retirement, and it was not there.
I forgot it was this year.
It was February. It was February 8th.
That's the beginning of the year.
I know. Which just kind of goes back to Kyle's point of, like, the things that happened most recently are the things we remember. But, like, this was a really big thing this year, right?
Absolutely.
Like, this was wrestling recognizing that it's a real thing that you can get really hurt from.
Yep.
This is Daniel Bryan finding a new role within the company because he realizes he doesn't want to wrestle, but he needs to be involved in it in some capacity.
And
This is my personal thing where, like, you know, I'm now a meme on the internet because of it. But there's also this, like, seeing the end of this Daniel Bryan storyline, because we've all been a part of it, right?
Yeah.
We saw, like, the hijacking of Raw, we saw WrestleMania 30, we saw constantly getting hurt, coming back, 31, getting the IC belt, getting hurt again, and just this roller coaster of emotions with Daniel Bryan the whole time. And this was just the abrupt stop, because I think we all saw it coming, but none of us wanted to admit it.
Yeah.
Right.
There was,
and it's hard to say that this is like the best of 2016 list because I don't think this is anywhere near good in any way, right?
No,
like,
it's
this is
like,
sad
like
for
moments of significance
Yes.
or
Yeah.
something.
I
And
think
I-
this is huge, and to not talk about this in wrestling in 2016 is doing
Yeah.
it a disservice.
I will say that the one thing when this happened is it was extremely sad but extremely relieving.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
because
yeah.
because
Personally, yeah.
yeah, because honestly,
You
Like,
didn't
like,
have to
safe
worry
thing.
about it anymore. Like, is Daniel Bryan going to come back? Because he's probably going to die.
yeah, and I mean like if it was the back or neck stuff, I would have been more like, come on, man, like maybe we can make it work. Maybe you go to the
But
Indies,
when you hear he's having seizures every time he
and
has
it's
a
the
concussion.
concussions, and it's like, it's a little too eerie. His a lot of things they say about Daniel Bryan, how similar it is to Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
Like that he's a wrestling genius, that he's this work ethic.
He's
and,
changed kind of the view of what wrestlers look like.
Yeah,
Like
and
all
it's-
of these things that are said.
And I'm like, fuck, dude, yeah, get out now. Like, not only for
None of us want to see that happen again.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was relieving. It was like, you know what? No, you need to not.
Like none of us wanted it to happen, and as soon as it happened, we were all happy that it did.
Yeah, because I mean, like, if I could turn back time and lose some of those Chris Benoit matches to get a healthy Chris Benoit, I would have.
An alive Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
There's also the part where it did transcend wrestling, and two where like people would like non-wrestling friends that we would have would all ask us like, "Hey, what's the deal with this Daniel Bryan
Yeah.
guy?" Right?
Well, and we have the advantage of he's from
Local.
Aberdeen, right? He's
Yeah.
local.
Well, yeah,
So-
but even just in general, like people, it was on Good Morning America, right? Like
Yeah.
people who were like, "Wow, okay."
Like I have my best friend's parents in Minnesota texted me and said, "I just saw you on Good Morning America," because Daniel Bryan is
Yeah.
being covered on this show, right? So yeah, Kyle's right. Like people were asking us, like, what is this Daniel Bryan guy? And going into the story of like who this guy was for the industry, why he's suddenly retiring, and I'd start seeing like people's eyes light up. People
Yeah.
who could give a shit about wrestling are
It's just
really
a very
excited to
human
hear.
story.
It's
and it's super
that's
sad.
exactly like
Yeah.
it's superhuman,
Yep.
right?
So, all right, number one.
Number one.
Alluding to this, right? So for Charlotte and Sasha, like just fight forever, main event, everything, just being as awesome as they are, right?
Yeah.
And for me, this is why, like, I kind of got a little pedantic about the women's revolution and separating them out because, like, they are just so good. I mean, we've already talked about it a bunch. Like on social media, the other women's wrestlers are now like they've gone from happy that the revolution's happening to like weirdly jealous because those two are so good. It doesn't even matter what gender they are; they're rocking everyone, right? Now Charlotte is now more fearsome than Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar got smushed.
Yeah.
Charlotte doesn't get smushed at least,
Yeah.
right?
Arguably, they are the two best wrestlers on the roster.
Yeah.
Charlotte is doing moonsaults off of an announce table.
Yeah.
Like they're doing things that the men aren't even doing anymore. And maybe it's them trying to push the envelope because it's such a unique time.
Yeah.
It's lightning in a bottle. It's the time to do it.
Yeah, no,
The
it's
eyes
like
are on
they're
them and
they're
they
taking
can.
advantage of it.
Yeah.
Like and Charlotte's like I think like late 20s, maybe early 30s, so she doesn't have too much longer to go, especially
Right.
if she keeps moonsaulting off of announce tables.
Yeah.
Sasha's got quite a career ahead of her, but she's been sort of injury prone recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she's like, I feel,
It's-
she's got less meat on her bones. Like maybe she's
Right.
a little less durable. Like
So,
the whole Daniel Bryan thing, right?
The
Yeah.
thing that makes me excited most about Charlotte and Sasha, and I think this is one of those, I've been watching long enough to trust sort of the long-term plan a little bit more, but when we see people like Nia Jax and the other wrestlers on Twitter talking about kind of how they're not necessarily excited that these two women are getting the main picture, these two women are eventually going to stop feuding.
Mm-hmm.
And then those two women are going to start having feuds with other wrestlers.
And-
So this may not benefit everyone in the immediate. It is definitely benefiting everyone in the long term. And
Yeah.
if what Ray says is true and they're going to continue to do the brand split, they could just put Charlotte and Sasha on two different rosters.
And then all of a sudden, you have these two wrestlers that have now insane legitimacy
Yes.
that can now build up the rest of the
Literally the entire like gender
roster. Yeah.
for this promotion.
And
That's the hope.
yeah, and let's be clear. I mean, like these two women are drawing. They are selling. They are like. There's a reason why. I mean, like just recently with this last kind of feud, it was supposed to end. They were supposed to go off and do their own separate rivalries.
And then they have the Iron Man match.
Yeah, because they keep selling. It keeps working. Why stop it? Keep the legitimacy going until it's a little bit worrisome about staleness. But I mean, No, I
It
think
keeps working. Like,
Yeah,
don't
don't
stop,
fuck it up.
guys.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really excited for WrestleMania this
I
year.
wish I could say I wish I could say no, this is bad, and like no, you need to like every match has been really fucking good.
You know what they could do at WrestleMania this year?
But
They have the 4 horsewomen again.
for what?
Yeah.
For both titles.
I mean, if for both or for one, but you could totally have a callback to the old
It'd
storyline.
be so cool.
Of
if
Charlotte,
one of these-
Sasha, Bailey,
Yeah.
and Becky are
Yeah.
all in WrestleMania. Because the only one you were missing last time was Bailey because she hadn't moved up yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could totally do it.
Yeah.
It would
Whether
be
or
so
not it's for
cool
a title at all.
to have remember when Rollins had both for a little bit?
Yeah.
US and World.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go.
If
The
if
statue.
you had a woman that had both titles and just maybe a few weeks went on both shows, they're like, I'm the best, and had both titles.
Yeah,
that'd
that'd
be
be
pretty
nice.
That was my number one, so I'm stoked got number one.
Yeah. No,
But also, again, like the categories, right? Like if I
It's
if I
how you
interpreted
read-
the same as you two, like
It's how you interpreted Ray's list.
yeah.
like Women's Revolution would have been number one if that one wasn't there, because
Yeah.
I would have like lumped it into there, right?
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
I think it was important to separate it out
But
because
yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah, like the business or the WWE supporting it should I wanted it to be a separate thing.
Right. It's like you have Trish and Lita.
Yeah,
For that to work, you need the support.
yeah.
And I think
they
Charlotte
didn't-
and Sasha have more support now than
Yeah,
Trish
then-
and Lita ever did.
Yeah, because they didn't always work.
Nope.
Because Trish and Lita had some amazing matches when they had the opportunity to showcase them.
All right, so what? I would say 1 minute to say one honorable mention each. Is that fair?
So AJ enters the Royal Rumble.
Is that yours?
I think I mean, that was
Okay.
definitely like, holy shit, this was awesome. Because at that point we had heard that AJ and Nakamura had both signed, and we're like, one of them's going to show up, one of them's going to show up. It hadn't been announced yet whether Nakamura was on
We
NXT or
haven't
whatever.
seen any new era stuff yet to trust them to handle it well.
And this
Yeah.
is when everyone still fucking hated Roman. We're like, holy
Yeah.
shit, he's going to win the Rumble again. This is going to suck. And then AJ's music hits,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's like, everything is okay again.
Yeah. So funny enough, this one was actually mine. The one that was yours was AJ Styles beat Cena repeatedly.
Oh my god, yes! Oh my god, because not only does he beat Cena and win the feud, but like, Cena just fucking leaves.
Yeah.
Like-
oh my god, he's just like
Which is more than what Kevin Owens got, right? Like,
Yeah.
Kevin Owens wins against Cena on his first night at the company, but AJ, like, took it to the next level.
Yeah, he beat him multiple times. Like KO beat him on his first try.
AJ has not yet been with the company for a year.
Yeah.
This is
So
insane.
my honorable mention is the resurrection of the Miz.
Yeah.
Yes!
I thought it was really cool. He leaned into it. He went through some shitty angles there, and he's been killing it. That Daniel Bryan shoot is another example of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's been doing great. Maurice's reintroduction has also been awesome.
I love their costumes.
Yeah.
Every fucking time you get this like Nicole Kidman
Yeah.
Yep.
Eyes Wide Shut thing going on.
I'll say that I think the reason one of our other honorable mentions is a New Day. Why they don't get higher voting is because of the weird timing thing where they started doing this like the year before.
Yeah.
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 They were
By-
big last year.
yeah.
They were big this year.
Yeah.
Like,
Last two things, real quick, we won't even really talk about them, is Seth Rollins returning, which was awesome.
that
Yeah.
was a huge surprise if you
Huge
stayed
pop.
off the internet.
Yeah. And,
And he was massive.
Yes.
I remember that was the only thing I remember from that is like, wow, that's a shitty pedigree. Holy shit, he's huge.
yeah. And then Shinsuke and Joe.
Yes.
Just because, I mean, for me, Shinsuke, one of the best wrestlers in the world, came to NXT with one of the best wrestlers in the world, and they met, and they keep fighting, and I think it's awesome.
If you had told anybody 5 years ago that was going to be a match that we're going to see in WWE, nobody would have believed
Yeah,
it.
I would have believed it was a match I would see in New Japan. Absolutely, yeah, for sure. But yeah, not in WWE.
Cool.
Alright.
Well, that's gonna wrap it up for the year.
For
believe
the
it or not.
year.
We've been doing this for a year. It's been 1 year since Ray's crazy acid trip, and he walks into work and says, "Yo,
I had a fever dream.
let's do a podcast."
Yeah.
Fever dream.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you like the podcast or Ray's acid dreams, you can subscribe.
just
Follow us
play
on
games.
Twitter at OnHeelsWP, Facebook.com/OnHeelsWP. Hit up Ray with a DM for his drug recommendations or whatever. iTunes, SoundCloud,
Don't.
YouTube.
My
All
drug
right.
recommendations are terrible.
Yeah. I know this from experience. I
No.
don't know. No, I don't know what to say
No.
there. I do know to say subscribe to the podcast, leave comments, give a 5-star rating on iTunes, and of course, please tell your wrestling friends about the podcast. Message us, tweet us, tell us random wrestling stuff. We love to talk about wrestling.
Yeah, my drug recommendations include Flintstones vitamins. Flintstones
So good.
vitamins.
Those are so good.
Thank you for listening to On the Heels Wrestling Podcast. So we're gonna be taking some time off for a while.
Yep.
You know, some of us got jobs, all of us got jobs, families, and babies.
Yeah, Kyle's having a baby soon.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it's just one.
Yeah.
It's lying to you this whole time. It's gonna be a hand.
Oh god.
Oh,
Too soon.
damn it. We'll be back on February 3rd to talk about the results of the Royal Rumble. That's right. We're taking a month off.
Yeah.
Which is good for all of us.
Ray's a little tired. I think he
I'm
needs it.
tired. All those drugs.
All those drugs, yeah, all those hard nights with Hombre Secreto.
Oh man, that guy.
Man,
You think I'm crazy? That guy.
I know. I heard he's been in the dojo getting ready.
So why don't you close us out, Ray?
All right. Then after all that, we'll ask ourselves the final eternal question for 2016. Will Kyle's baby become the fourth member of our podcast?
I don't think your wife is gonna let your kid watch wrestling at all.
She'll let him watch. She doesn't care. But podcasting, I mean, the kid's not gonna be able to talk for a while.
Nah, he'll be fine. He'll got it.
Or her. We don't know.
Or her. Oh, we
Yeah.
don't know yet.
We don't know.
I know.
Ooh, better eternal question.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
start bets. Like, what's
All
the
right.
line?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I told Kyle, like, this better be a fucking girl. Like,
I mean, I lean to the left, which means
Yeah.
that guarantees.
so
one
Ray,
gender.
you're the tiebreaker, I think.
Oh man, I don't know what leads to the
No, not
left.
tiebreaker. I want a girl too.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll be the shitty wrestling fan and say it's gonna be a boy.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ray.
We'll let
This
everyone know.
resolution, your ass.
And you know what's gonna be funny? It's not gonna be right.
Oh, that's the way we close out 2016.
Shit, man. I feel like I lose. Baby dog and be like, Ray was right. I got you.
What?